Dago, welcome to the podcast. Nice to have you
Yeah,
here, buddy.
yeah, good to be here.
All right, finally the face to the name that we see on Twitter all the time with all the stories. I call it like the Dago style of tweeting all these things. You know, it's like you've got this distinct
Yeah,
style you picked up, and you've been insisting that okay, the memes are there and the stories are there, and I think all of us enjoy that now. And just thought it'll be cool to get you on the podcast and have a discussion about Logology and your entire Twitter thing. So let's get going. Typically, I just like we ask, okay, how did you get here? What are you doing? Logology, before Logology, what's the origin story? A little bit about Daco.
yeah. So I started building websites when I was 15. I'm 32 now, so that was a long time ago. Learned on my own, just online tutorials, stuff like this. Did a couple projects and quickly started freelancing because I
Hmm.
was wanting to make some money, wanted to was pretty had a lot of energy to build stuff. So I love building websites. So I did design, I did engineering, helping startups. So I did that for like almost 10 years,
Mm.
up to when I was kind of bored with like freelancing because I felt like I was always, jumping from one project to the next. And so the big moment was when I was, I think that's 28. So like 4 years ago, I looked for a job in the US because I'm French. I live in France. And in the US, the salaries are way higher. So I was tired of freelancing, but I didn't imagine of building my own company. I just thought, well, I'm just going to find better. And I thought, like, you know, exciting US job working remotely sounded really cool. So I looked for that. I went to the US, I went to San Francisco, I met tons of people, I sent emails to everyone. Eventually, I got the dream job. So that was 4 years ago. And the thing is, so it was super exciting at the beginning, high salary, very cool team, very cool project. I was, a senior front end engineer there. Was, everything was perfect basically. It's just that after a couple of months, I felt like, oh, is this the end? Like, is this the end of everything? Like, so I tried freelancing. Then I have the job that I can't possibly get a better job, like maybe a bit, but not significantly. And I was like, okay, I'm like on top of the mountain of what I can have, and I'm bored. Like I just hate it. It was like so boring, and so it became. I mean, I was kind of like depressed at that time because I was like, okay, what am I gonna do now? Because and I realized what I loved was the challenge. What I love is like the adventure. So I loved when I was freelancing and always chasing for new contracts and new projects and more exciting ones and higher paid ones. But eventually I went to like my limit, so I went for a job and then I got that. And then basically I realized, okay, no more challenge. And I was kind of like not any other option than build my own company, which I never really wanted to do because I always knew it was going to be stressful and risky and scary. So I never actually wanted to do that. It's just that I tried everything else and I was like, okay, so now I'm just going to either be depressed and have a shitty life. Like tons of people have, I think. Like they just like get into something they don't like, but they're afraid of doing something else, so they just get stuck in that, and they'll just like be miserable, and
Mm.
eventually they just die. That's basically the path, and like without nothing
Okay.
exciting. And then, and me, I was like, okay, I can't have that. I have to. I mean, even it's so scary to build a company, I have to do it because it's the only thing that I'm excited about. And now I'm happy because it was 3 years ago that I made that choice. And even though it's incredibly stressful, I mean, sometimes I have a lot of trouble sleeping. I'm very uncomfortable in this situation, to be honest. And at the same time, wow, I haven't been bored in 3 years. And to me, it's the most important. And I'm growing like crazy. I mean, growing like on a personal level. Hopefully, I would stay the same from my startup soon. But at least on a personal level, I'm growing and I'm experiencing. And I feel like in the last 3 years, I've grown way more than like in the 8 years before that.
Mm.
And to me, that's like, the biggest thing.
Right. That's actually very relatable and interesting, I think, to a lot of people who are going to be listening in because it's very, what do you call it, common that a lot of people, you know, let's say, get into that entire spot, but like they don't choose to, yeah, let's say, deviate from what they've already invested in, because of course it's, they've invested so many years of their life trying to go in that
Yeah.
direction. And now suddenly they're like, what if I just like, they suddenly start counting the cost of like, oh, does this mean that, hey, my 8 years of my life is a waste? I don't know,
Yeah.
that sort of inner conversation that sort of starts to happen. It's not that easy to have. Yeah, and absolutely see where you're going with this. So tell us a little bit more about Logology, because it's interesting. Lots of people give you a lot of ideas about it on Twitter,
Yeah.
how to actually grow it. It's an interesting space, in the sense of the design angle of it, but also you're trying to be careful in not going full-fledged agency, but also at the same time don't want to get into, let's say, info products with that. You do a little bit with the catalog and stuff, but yeah, I mean, like, so tell us a little bit more about it. It's interesting, like, because you've taken some interesting decisions in how you put it together
Okay.
so far. Yeah.
Yeah. So just like how I started Logology is pretty funny. So I decided to quit my job because of the reason I said earlier. But I didn't set out to do Logology. I set out to do something else that was kind of like I wanted to create WordPress but for mobile apps, some kind of
Hmm.
crazy ambitious thing like that. And I started it and I had nobody who was interested. I couldn't find anybody interested. So I kind of like lost energy for it after a couple of months. And at the same time, I got married with my wife. We were doing a honeymoon. So that was like 3.5 years ago. And I was, looking at indie hackers for how to fix the problem with my idea. And I stumbled upon this guy creating a logo company and an automated service. And he was making a ton of money. And I was like, oh, wow, there's potential in that. I had no idea. And I remembered that now it's going to be like 7 years ago. So like 5 years, like let's say 4 years prior to that, my wife and I had an idea for like an online website where you could generate a logo. But we never, because my wife is a logo designer and I'm a web developer. So there was a natural, sometimes we had that idea, oh, we should mix our abilities. It made sense. And, but like back then, we never thought that they would have any money in there. We never assumed people would pay. We didn't have that realization that it was possible. So we just thought, oh, maybe a cool open source thing or something. So like we gave up basically because like it was never a priority compared to making money, like freelancing, because she was freelancing as a designer too. And so back to so when we had that realization that it was possible to make money and we were doing a honeymoon, I remember she was driving, I was like on my phone, and I was like looking at that, like browsing the indie hackers website, and I was like, we should do that, we should just create this. I just left my job, and like she was also bored of like 10 years of freelancing doing graphic design, and that was probably the craziness of the honeymoon, and we felt, let's do it, and that was just it. And we had no plan, not nothing specific. We just knew, okay, you're good at doing logos, I'm good at doing websites, let's do it. And so then after that we started, and basically the whole idea of Logology is we looked at everything that existed online, like all the logo generators, and I mean, that's pretty arrogant, but we felt they don't do a good job. That's our perspective. From my wife, who is a logo designer, she charges 3,000 for like a brand, custom brand for a company, you know. So that's like these tools online. They used to be very affordable, which is a good thing, but they don't really help you with branding. It's more like you design your own logo. Like you're gonna pick a symbol, you're gonna pick a font, you're gonna pick a color, boom, you have a logo, but you basically did everything yourself. And it's not
Right.
really a designer who helped you. And so we looked at it and then we quickly stopped looking at it because we felt, okay, that's not what we want to do. What we want is we want to make what she does for $3,000, we want to automate it and make it affordable. Because at the same time, she had to say no to tons of customers every month. Like every month, they would have, prospect people coming up to her and be like, "Hey, I love your style. I want a logo. Cool. It's $3,000. Oh shit, I have like 200. So no luck. Like it's like too far out." So the
Right.
idea was like to automate what she does and make it affordable. And so the whole vision for Logology is we basically looked at what she does with customers. So what she does is step one, she's going to spend time with them and do a workshop where they tell her about the values of their company, the vision of their company, their customers, what's the kind of mood of the whole thing. So that's step one. Step two is she's going to make design proposals for them. She's going to design logos for them, like maybe like five proposals. And then step
Mm-hmm.
three is they choose one, and then she finalizes it with like small tweaks, finalize the font, the color, and then boom, you have your logo and your whole branding document. And so Logology is the same thing. It's just that it's automated. So step one, instead of like the workshop, it's a quiz. It took us a long time to figure out that thing, but to think of this idea as basically a personality quiz for your brand and your startup. So we don't ask you, oh, do you want blue or red? We never ask you that. Or like, do you want a bird or whatever, an abstract symbol? We just ask you, if your company was a superhero, which one would it be? Like if you were like, what are your values? What is like your vision for your customers? And that's like a quiz that takes 5 minutes to take online. Then we tell you, okay, this is your brand personality out of like 10 possible personalities that we pre-designed. And then what we do is we're going to match you with logos that my wife pre-designed ahead of time. So like
Mm-hmm.
for every type of brand personality and every type of industry, she made tons of logos. It took a shit ton of time. Like it's been 3 years now. She's at 700 logos, designed everything from scratch. Crazy. I mean, she's very effective. Like she's one of the best I've ever seen at that. So that's perfect. That's like unfair advantage. She's like a logo design industry, one person. Uh, and so she's a machine, like she's amazing. So basically, yeah, you take the quiz, then we match you with the right ones, but each one of them was designed by her ahead of time to tell you, okay, this matches your brand. So we're gonna give you like something like 30 choices, because right now it's still based on industry, so it's gonna be a bit more like, it's not gonna be super. It's not gonna be like one logo that's the right for you. It's more like, okay, there's 30 that seem like they could match, and usually it does a good enough job for now. And then you pick it, and then you can choose among colors and fonts that she handpicked and designed herself to match your brand personality. So that basically our promise is like, it's basically the opposite of existing logo generators. It's like, you can't go out of Logology with a shitty looking logo. It's not possible, because we like limit every choice and vet every choice from her ahead of time. So it's not like you design it. It's like we lead you, and you choose a couple, like, and then you have like a couple path, like a couple, like, the path is splitting in a couple times. But
Right.
at the end of the day, every path that you can possibly take, that was pre-designed by the designer. So at the end of the day, like, you cannot get away with a shitty looking logo. It's always gonna look like, okay, it's been done by a designer. And then
Right.
it's all automated. So like, now we have customers who do many startups. Like we have one who bought like 5 logos a month, like 1 year. And now like he's so fast because he knows the process. So like it takes him 20 minutes, take the quiz, make my selection. Okay, compare a couple ones, buy, done. I have my logo, I have my branding, done by a designer. I'm happy. That's the whole thing.
Right. Very nice. I actually didn't know the back end process, or like how, because I've never used it, but I've been to your site a bunch of times. I remember, I think, coming across the site uh, before we actually got connected sometime back. I'm talking a few months back.
Yeah,
I found it interesting, and I was looking at that because I was very interested in this space at some point of time, and I was like, oh, so what's happening in this, this part of the world, and
yeah,
at least internet. And I was like, okay. And there are these generators, the logo generators, and I, of course, completely agree, because that's what I found as well. Is that you could actually just be better off by going and picking a nice font, and then just writing out your name of the startup, and just black and white. Okay, that's
yeah,
better. Okay, than all the logo generators out there, because it's so it is like, um, I think they missed the entire point. They focus too much on logo generation versus the actual skill and the design eye, or the choice
yeah,
that the designer makes.
yeah,
Because they completely miss that. It's like, okay, so what's the difference? Like, that's just some pixels put together, right? That's just some shapes put together. It's not really. a proper logo, because a logo requires a lot more. You can of course like make it very simple, that's fine, but then
Yeah,
there's also some skill required to make it simple. I mean, there's only, according to me, I've done like a lot of these now. It's more like you can have a simple name, the name of the startup, with just, let's say, black and white, or like very very simple contrasting colors,
yeah,
which is fine, which goes for a lot of ventures, which goes for a lot of startups in the beginning. If you're an MVP or something, just write down
yeah.
the
If you
name.
just have
Yeah.
something clean, like it's already good at the beginning. Definitely,
Yes,
yeah,
yes. And I feel as soon as you go away from that and start investing, right, then you need somebody with a little bit of design understanding to be able to look at that, rather than in fact, if you look at Canva, right,
yeah,
and if you look at why they've been, let's say, successful uh, with the editor and all of that, is because they haven't really generated designs by the computer, and they haven't really left the design choice beyond the point, okay, to the person who's coming on the site. Because what they've done is the they're world class designers sitting in Canva's head office, and they're making all these things, right,
yeah.
and they
That's
put
it.
it up there. And because it's coming from that, your starting point is so good, right, that it's very low chance of you messing it up. If you go in there and just change the text, for example, a little bit, like change the name, change this, change that. Of course,
Yeah,
the challenge is that a lot of them look similar, but I think that's where Logology is interesting, because it's coming from a designer who designed this catalog. It's almost like a micro Canva situation, but then you also have the entire questionnaire, and then you've got all the the customization of which logo will go with what the client really
yeah.
requires. And a lot of clients really don't know all of that, because they're good at
I
building the business. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I think the difference between us and Canva is really gonna give you like it's to create any kind of like design assets. So it can be like social
Right.
media posts. It can be
Mhm.
I mean whatever, like anything for print, anything for anything you need. Like basically like a
Sure.
shit ton of templates. That's what it is, and
Yes.
they look good,
Yes.
and you can customize them.
Right.
And but it doesn't really handle branding. Like it's not about defining what your brand looks like. Like it's not gonna tell you these colors reflect your values. It's not going to tell you
Mm.
that. And it's not going to help you figure out your values in the first place.
Mm.
And for us, it's really like this thing. And that I have this vision that we would become, my hope, like kind of like the branding API. That would be
Mm.
like kind of like a vision, like that everybody
Mm.
like Canva could plug into us and be
Mm.
like, okay, you get the brand generated by Logology, and then it's gonna feed into all the templates. So like it's the right colors and
Mm.
it's the right font. Like, but kind of like it seemed like it's interestingly enough, it doesn't seem like it's something that's taken off that much yet. I feel like it's still one step ahead of like
Mm.
where the market is. To be honest, I feel like a lot of people branding is all like it's branding is seen as something only for big companies right now.
Mm.
Like when you talk to someone like, okay, design your brand, like an actual brand identity thing, it's gonna cost like thousands of dollars, and so it's kind of like only for big companies. And
Mm.
our kind of like our hope is that we can make it available for everyone. Like you're just starting out, you
Mm.
just have like 50 or $100. You can have an actual brand identity, like that's been thought out. Like even though it's automated in a way, it's
Mm.
been, very close to like a human kind of thinking.
Right.
And so yeah, so to us it's like completely different product than Canva, because we don't generate any kind of, at least so far, like we don't focus on generating graphic design assets. We focus on
Mm.
like, okay, your colors, your fonts, your values, how do you express it, your logo obviously, which is the center focus point. But yeah,
I think that seems to be like the next step, right? So let's say if I come to Logology, I like let's say do the questionnaires, I get a very cool
yeah,
logo with like a human touch, and it's actually made by a designer instead of a computer generating it. And after that, the next step, like you're saying, is sort of the API kind of thing, because it's like, okay, I do if Simon from FeedHive,
yeah,
right? Yeah, the founder. And you actually look at his stuff. It's got this consistency about it. Okay, it's like
yeah.
you go to the color scheme, everywhere. It's like you go to his profile picture, his background on his profile picture, even though it's very little, it's just going to be that
Oh, you can
dark green.
definitely identify his
Yes.
brand. Yeah, definitely.
Yes. yeah, and then if you go to his YouTube videos and then the LinkedIn post and then the screenshots and a lot of that, and they've got that consistency. And the point is, okay, Simon is really good in whatever he does. Okay, he's a proficient, so let's say very
Yeah,
proficient in what he does.
definitely.
I'm pretty sure he's got a little bit of help going on somewhere, but not possible to code and schedule and create. I'm pretty sure there's like some or the other, like let's say two or three people, maybe something or the other going on in terms of help, but
Hmm.
irrespective. The point is, how do you make that? And I can see the next step of Logology as being, okay, cool. We did this thing. Okay, now you've got the brand kit. And I saw a little bit on your website which says, oh, you can also, like, we can also do the brand kit overall, which I think you guys do in terms of a custom thing, right? It's like, if I buy from you and then you might custom quote me on that, and then you can do a brand identity, which I think is possible. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we right now what we're doing is we're automating it. We are finishing this product right
right,
now because we had a few people ask for it. So,
right,
and we already had someone pay for it, like to get early access. So that's really good
right.
news for us. It means it's validated.
Yes,
And yeah, it's like now we only provide the logo basically, and then simple text guidelines about the fonts and the colors. But
right.
now we're gonna add on top of it like a full like some I don't know yet how much, something like 20 pages PDF with like
Yes.
color
I
scheme,
can
light
see,
light
yeah,
mode, dark mode, fonts for your
yes.
website, fonts for everything. That's gonna be step one. And depending on that, we would like to also do things like generate, well, your YouTube design, your like social media
Yes.
design, all that
Yeah.
stuff.
There's a
And
company called Relay That. I don't know if you've seen their work.
which one?
Relay That.
Relay that.
Like,
Okay.
yes, yeah. From some time back. I mean, like, they've been around. They haven't updated the software much. But these guys, like,
Yeah.
even before Canva, they actually had this option where you could feed in a brand colors, and then whatever you create effectively will be generated like across all your images like that. I can
Yeah.
see you guys going in that direction in some form or the other. Where, okay, um, instead of
Cool.
templatizing everything, it's more like, okay, cool. Let me, we'll do the custom stuff, and then you know you should be able to then apply that everywhere, except for, because I think brand guides work for people who know how to use them. It's more for a designer than a founder, if
Actually,
if you
for
were
us,
to.
it's really, I mean, it's really founders who asked us for it
Mm,
because, but it's because right now the people we target, it's mostly we're like very early. We passed like 200 sales lately, so it's awesome, but it's like tiny. So it's only early adopters, people who really care
mm,
about it. So it's gonna be 90% is indie founders, people like us,
mm.
like solo teams. And these people, they usually just do it themselves. Like they're going to build their landing
Yes.
page themselves.
Yep.
And what they tell us is, I have the logo, it's awesome, but I'm shit at design. How do I make like my landing page look good? I have no idea. And
Yeah.
I'm like, kind of like stuck. And
Mm,
so if you could just give me a guide, well, like that tells me, okay, the
mm.
fonts, okay, the colors, and that's why we're focusing on it because we know we have demand for that. But
Right.
I agree. But it's because we're very early. It's like if we had like
Mm,
10,000 sales and people beyond the indie startup founder space,
mm.
probably be different. Like right now, we don't have people who are doing that. Our customers are not like opening restaurants or like setting up.
Mm.
It's not this kind of business. It's mostly SaaS online products. Uh, and that's also a choice on our end because it's so long to create all these logos. We had to pick like a vertical. I mean, like, okay, we're gonna focus on startups
Right.
because they are likely to try something new.
Mm,
We can reach them because they're like us, so it's easier. And then we can focus on creating great products for them. And then we'll expand later to any kind of business, like hair
mm.
salon, whatever, car mechanic. But right now, let's focus on like this audience. Yeah,
No, I really like that. I think one thing that comes to mind is something like a bundle. So, so let's say you've got the logo, you've got the initial assets that you would need for your basic social stuff. You would also get the brand
yeah,
guide. Then I can imagine, like, maybe like even just a choice of just a selection, not even like you guys have to make it, but I can imagine that, okay, you know what, if you were to do a landing page, then okay, broadly, like, these are the references for what looks good in general, for this kind of, let's say, if you were to do that. But yeah, lots of possibilities with all of this. So
Yeah,
I like how you've got that little bit of momentum going now, and it's like you said, it's initial stages, but it's interesting because everyone that I read on Twitter replies back to you with some idea, and I'm doing the same thing on the podcast. So,
yeah, okay.
that is interesting. All right. So, I mean, a few other questions. I wanted to ask. So, how hard has it been in the sense of, um, let's just say, not having, let's say, exponential stuff, like, so slow growth is a thing, okay, like, slowly, getting everything
Hmm.
together. And when you said it right now, it may sound like, okay, cool, boom, 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 there are like four or five things that happen in one after the other, but like when it's happening in real time, like you get up in the morning and then you have your day and all of that. So how difficult has that been, or how easy, what's that experience been like, in being so deliberate and so selective with what you're working on? Because a lot of people then give away. They're like, okay, you know what, I was very selective in what I want to do, but then if they don't see traction, if they don't see customers coming in, if they don't see revenue, then they're like, okay, forget this. You know what, let's just like do whatever the
Yeah,
market
most
is
people
doing.
do that.
Let's
I've
just
noticed. Yeah, I've noticed.
Yeah. So
But,
so how's that been overall? Like, in the sense of like, how have you managed that, or how have you so dealt with that, or have you even thought about that?
yeah, I think the thing that kept us going, because it took us basically 20 months to launch, like way
Mm,
too long, like a year and a half before we launched anything. And
right.
then after that, it took us more than a year to get 100 sales.
Mm,
And it's not expensive. So, like, basically, on average, it's $70 per sale. So you don't make
mm,
a living with that. It's not a lot of traction. That's
mm,
basically, 5 sales a month or something. I'm not
mm,
sure, but like something like that. So it's not like it's tiny.
mm,
So, but the reason why we kept going for so long is it's from like where does the idea come from? The idea comes from seeing that my wife was saying no to customers because they
mm,
didn't have enough money, but they loved the work that she was doing. So we knew there was a need. Like we knew that, like because with zero, you know, where we live, it's just like local network of people, like local
right.
network of customers, and even in that, there was people needing this product. We knew because of that. So that's why we took our time initially because we thought we just have to make a perfect version and they're gonna just buy it, which didn't happen, but that's another discussion. But then that's
Right.
why even though we launched and it didn't have success on launch because we didn't do good marketing, we had no idea how to do it. So even though we had very tiny sales, like as I said, like on average something like 5 sales a month,
Mm,
um, well, even with that, most of the people who bought from us, they told us, "Oh wow, that's just like you saved me, guys. Like I saved so much money. Like
mm,
very early on, we had people tell us. I felt like basically people who love buying from us, they usually already worked with a designer before,
mm,
and they know the value of design. And I remember some guy told us after like 3 months, one of our first customers, and he told us we have it on the testimonials page now. We I felt like working with a designer, but I spent way less money and it was instantaneous. And it was
mm,
even better than a designer in terms of result. So basically like the three magic thing, like quick,
right.
affordable, and quality, like the three things that you're not supposed to have together and like always have to choose two. And and he was like, I have all three. And people who buy from us, they have that experience. And even
Mm,
though we had very tiny amount of customers, we thought, well, it's worth keep going because we felt okay. There's not going to be just 10 guys like this. There's thousands of people like him. I mean, like this
mm,
person. We know it. We know because we've been in like entrepreneur circle locally, so we know there's tons of people creating companies who give a
right.
shit about branding. The majority
Mm,
don't. The majority they don't even know what it is. And that's what people told us. People don't know, and people told us people don't know about branding. They don't have the ability to understand it. So why do you want to go after them? Like nobody's gonna give a shit. And it's true, like the majority don't. But we believe there's enough people who do that we can just do a good job for them, and they're gonna be over the moon. So that kept
Mm.
us going. And then we realized it was mostly about marketing. So I started, doing Twitter and all that, and it started taking off, a bit better.
Oh yeah, I want to ask you about that. Absolutely, I got a very cool point out of that, which is like, hey, um, it's fine to not look at whatever you're doing in terms of trying to dominate the market, and that's a lot everybody tries to think of. They're like, oh, they'll be sitting in their home in their pajamas and going to be like, oh, I'm going to dominate the market, but that's actually
Yeah,
not
yeah,
what's. I mean, the reality is not that, and then of course that's not going to happen. And there are a lot of things that are going to lead up to all of that. So serving a smaller market, well defined, at least with a good amount of focus, actually is a competitive advantage because it's also allowed you to create that sort of circle of trust and circle of people who sort of come back to you, on a regular basis. So I absolutely agree, and I think it serves a lot of people to sort of do that with their ventures, especially indie hackers who try to go, all out. They look at,
yeah,
and there's a lesson for sure. Like you've of course gone from, hey, let's do a WordPress mobile version to let's do this, and it's been such a shift. But there's definite value in trying to sometimes keep it simple and focused, which is great. But more importantly, Twitter. What have you been doing on Twitter, my friend? It's been it's been interesting, and
yeah.
tell us a little bit more about that. I want to give, like, I don't want you to give away everything, but like a little bit about what you've been doing. How did you get started with, like, okay, discover Twitter suddenly, and then you've sort of, you have these 2 3 specific styles in which you operate in. So what's been happening with that?
Yeah, so I mean, and I've been browsing Twitter like for like 12 years or something, just like, having an account, following a few people. But I try to tweet a couple times, but nobody answers anything, so it's just like felt empty. So I just use it as a consumer. And then, I mean, there was this tension, like something like 6 months ago when I started Twitter seriously, between what I told you about. We know some people like it. I mean, actually
Mm,
love it. So we know there's potential. That's one point of the story. And the other part of the story was, but nobody's buying anything because we have no traffic.
mm,
So how do we solve that? So we tried paid ads on Google. It didn't work. We tried sponsoring newsletters. Didn't work. I started blogging a bit about my journey on indie hackers. Got us a couple sales, but like not to the amount that we need. So eventually I got like kind of like fed up, and I was like, okay, I know we have a good product. I mean, at
mm,
least good enough to sell. I know this because of we have enough customers telling us, so that's proof. Okay. And then, even though it's very hard to find every single customer, it's like a fight to get them. Like it's like somebody randomly on Reddit, oh, you posted that. So like it's kind of like random and scary to never know where sales come from. Someday we were gonna have 3 sales and then no sales for 3 weeks, and we have no idea why or how, and it's just like so depressing. And so I was so um, angry about that situation of like we have a good product but we don't have customers. I kind of like gave up, like
mm,
trying uh, to be a good at marketing because I realized I don't know how to do marketing. I suck. Like I have no idea. I don't know what I don't know. I was like, okay, I can't solve this problem. So I was like, well, and at the same time, because I'm so bored at having a job, I'm not gonna go back. So what's left to do? I'm gonna keep doing this startup and I suck at marketing. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna just spam my link everywhere because I had no other option. I was like, I mean, spam is a big word, but basically, anytime there's the opportunity to plug in Logology, I'm gonna do it. And I started spending weeks. So that was in May. I started doing that, and basically what I did is I looked on. So Twitter was a part of it. I looked at indie hackers. I looked at Reddit. Every time somebody said something like, "Hey, what are you working on?" or like, "Hey, do you need help with like what do you need feedback?" And I didn't need feedback, but I wanted people to check out my website. So hey, please give me your feedback. And that was terrible
right,
because some people were telling me great feedback, but I didn't actually care. But because I just wanted to get people to my website.
right,
I had enough feedback at that stage. I still wrote
right.
it down, but that was kind of like I just tried to have people come to my website. That was it. And I remember on Twitter, I was, looking for everybody saying, "What are you working on this weekend?" Logology, I'm working on Logology. Like I would do that 20 times a day. Like every time somebody would have something remotely where I could plug myself in.
Mm,
And it didn't, I mean, we had a bit of traffic like that, but nothing major. And then one day, I replied to one of these tweets and it got viral. Like I got like
mm,
1,000 people to my website on one day and a couple sales, and it blew me away. And then I started moving away from everything. So like Reddit, indie hackers, I just started focusing on Twitter.
mm,
And then after a while, it started doing better. Like, and I started sharing more. And I looked at, okay, how do you actually grow Twitter? How do you get engagement?
mm,
And then I started sharing my story a bit more, and I started to get a bit of traction like that, like a couple likes here and there, like people being like, "Oh, cool, good to hear from you." So I started, after like trying to be just like talk about logology, I started realizing just talking about what I was going through was
mm,
pretty random at first, but I noticed people actually resonated with it.
mm.
And I started making a couple of friends. So at that time, I had like 200, 250 followers.
Mm.
That was mostly people from back then who don't use Twitter anymore. That was kind of like a dead
Right.
account I had.
Mm,
And it started getting, I got a couple viral tweets kind of like randomly, and it got me a lot of hope for, okay, I need to talk about my journey, and I need to tweet every day. I started reading guides about how to do it. You need to tweet every day, you need to do all that. So I started taking it more seriously. And then eventually, after a while, I needed to have content, but I didn't have ideas. So I was like, I'm just gonna make memes. I'm just gonna have fun. Because I'm the
right.
guy, usually at parties, I'm the guy who make jokes, who's always making fun of everything. And so for me, that was a natural thing to just make fun of things. And I was and since I had that taste of like a couple sales from a viral tweet, I was like, okay, I was like focused on it 100%. So I spent 10 hours a day doing nothing else but Twitter. So like, how do I good tweets? How to grow my audience? And I just focused on that. And that's where like initially the memes were funny because it was just for me and a couple of guys who liked me, but it never got any traction. The first like month of memes where I was doing one every day, it never got viral or anything, but it just was fun with like the people who really liked me on Twitter, like who I was really
Mm,
friends with. So I kept doing it for them, and I also felt like it was more authentic because if I just tweet to grow, it just can quickly sound like just like an account that's kind of like disconnected from people. So I
mm,
started, I didn't just want to make inspirational tweets that people,
mm.
that go viral. I also wanted to have fun. So I kept doing both, and eventually the memes become almost even bigger now. So that's funny. That was completely unexpected. And now I'm like known for like doing memes. That's which doesn't. I never thought there would be any value in that, but there is because then people come to my profile, check out my website, check out Logology, eventually buy a logo.
Right.
So growing on Twitter was like the best thing I did because now I went from basically one sale per week to now about six or seven just from people come go seeing my tweets and
Right.
then checking out my website out of curiosity mostly.
Yeah, and I think you've also developed a reputation now of being this, let's say, um, you got two, three different things, right? So one thing you're known for is, of course, the logos, is the Logology thing, of course,
Yeah.
and then you're also known for the memes, but the memes also is very specific. They're about like they're almost like a bootstrapper, indie hacker profile focused kind of thing where.
Oh,
Uh,
definitely. Yeah.
yeah, like it's aimed at that crowd, and that crowd also finds it funny because it's like it's so relatable. So I can see that. Yeah, so there's also this reputation thing that it's built up. That you've stuck with one thing and now you're known for that. So I'm pretty sure now you get tagged a lot. On other people's tweets, because I see that sometimes. I'm like, when
Yeah.
somebody puts out, "Hey, I need a logo," or "I need something," and then somebody will tag you or somebody will tag Logology, and that's become a reputation thing as well, because which is beyond what your efforts were in the sense of like going viral. Now it's like you've got all these people who know who you are and like what Logology does, and now whenever something comes up, and that's the cool thing about Twitter is like. I do it a bunch of times with a lot of my friends on Twitter now, and
Yeah.
a lot of times I get tagged in a lot of things. So I can see that sort of also, now, building up from let's say what you guys have built. Uh, but it's been interesting overall. Seeing your Twitter thing, and yeah, I mean, it takes what do you call it? One thing I do love about you on this call, which I of course didn't know as much. I think before we got on the podcast is
Yeah,
how resolute you are with that. Okay, cool, we'll do it, and then sort of, let's say, stick with it, and sort of, let's say, do a little bit of it and do a little bit more, and then that kind of, let's say, thing where you keep on using that shovel and keep on going little little little
yeah,
little
yeah.
little.
That's true. Yeah, I do that. Yeah,
Yeah, that's pretty cool because to be very honest, that's not my strongest strength, like my strong suit. So I really struggle with that, and I'm pretty sure like a lot of entrepreneurs and all that also find that very hard to do. Is like, stick with that one thing. And but that's pretty cool. I do know Twitter and the internet in general rewards that. When somebody sticks with and they keep on doing it and keep on
yeah,
doing it. And yeah, you're like living proof, and I think Logology is also living proof that, okay, yeah, you know what, if you keep at it with this thing, but it's not like dumb hard work. Okay, it's also like, so many things that you tried, that things worked and things didn't work, and it's
yeah.
not just that, oh,
Before doing Twitter, I tried many things. We tried
right.
tons of ways to talk about logology. As I said, like we tried ads. We were writing on indie hackers. My wife who is the designer, was also writing articles about brand design on indie hackers. We
Hmm.
tried many things, and it's just like Twitter was kind of like unexpected. I never thought. I mean, now I'm like kind of like this influencer on Twitter, but it doesn't make any sense to me. I never thought I'm gonna be. That sounds stupid. Like I'm not gonna become an influencer. It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
But I just didn't care about that. I just cared about I'm gonna try so many things. I tried Twitter and it worked, and I was like, oh
Hmm.
wow, I tried so many things. Now this works. And after so many times not making money, struggling, using all my savings to just stay afloat, um, I was like, wow, if this works, I'm gonna do it. So now, if I have to become an influencer, I'm gonna become an influencer. I don't give a shit. I do whatever it takes to make my company work. So
Right.
I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do memes every day, tweets every day, and if that's the path, that's the path.
Nice, nice, very nice. Okay, so what's happening with Logology? Where are you heading? What's the, because you get thrown, I'm pretty sure, at least like 25 different ideas every day from,
Yeah.
not just your head, but like everywhere.
Well,
So
now it's cool
in
because
general,
I used to listen to everybody, but now we noticed we should only listen to people who pay us, like people who
mm,
actually spent money on the product, because we noticed people who didn't spend money on the product, they don't understand it,
mm,
and they don't see the value. And like tons of people are going to tell us, oh, you should give a way to see all the logos so I can just choose.
mm,
Um, and that's people who didn't buy from us. And we
mm,
noticed this would completely change our product to become just a stupid catalog.
mm,
And if we do that, that would be weird because like the people who buy, they tell us, I want even less choice. I want you to guide me even further.
right,
I'm not a designer. I suck. I don't know
correct.
what I need. Please help me. And that's a completely different mindset. That's like opposite.
Mm,
So, and we noticed every time we focus on what these people want, like people who pay, it goes way better. It's like when you listen to people who don't pay, you're gonna listen basically to a ton of people who don't see the value, and they're trying to help you because for them your product is crap, and they're like, okay, I'm gonna help him make this product better for me. But you're just like starting from a very far away with someone
mm,
who's very far away from buying anything from you because he doesn't understand your sensibility, he doesn't understand your vision, he doesn't see value in it. So if you just try trying to convince this guy, it's going to take, I mean, it's going to transform your product, and you're going to probably lose the people who give a shit. So
right.
that's easy now basically because anybody who gives me advice, I mean, and tons of people are going to listen to this and like, oh, I gave him advice, and tons of people who gave me advice and didn't pay for it, didn't pay for the product, or like shown a significant like understanding of the value of the product. I'm
Right.
like, yeah, cool, I write it down, but it's like bottom of the pile, and I'm just like focus on people who paid and they tell me
Mm,
what they need, and I'm like, oh wow, okay, that's interesting. And if I build that, I notice they buy it, or like and also it's going to attract more people like them. and it's going to
Mm.
make my product even more tailored to their needs and even more perfect to them, which is really good at that stage. I don't want to reach everybody. I don't care. I just care about making money with this. And I notice making a living with my wife, and it's better to talk with people who pay because,
Mm.
you know, they, it's way more reliable to listen to them, basically.
Right. Yeah, and I think this is something that I think a lot of founders, face as well. It's like, okay, you go out there and you put out a product out there and all of that stuff, but then you start getting feedback, and then you have your own view of what you want to do with the product. Then you've got customers who are telling you, and within the
Yeah,
customers, it's not like standard feedback. It's like all kinds of people giving you all kinds of feedback, but then at the same time, you also have all these other people who could be your customers in the future, but so it's a, what do you call it, like there's no formula to it, but like, yeah, you got to find your own you got to find your own footing with this. And I think I'm glad to see, like, okay, you know what, you're pretty clear in the sense that over the years you sort of picked it up and said, okay, this is how we're going to approach it, which is cool. But where's Logology heading from your perspective now that, okay, cool, this is where you guys are at? Any potential plans for this year, or you're just like, okay, let's focus on
yeah.
okay, this year's almost over, but like, yeah, in general, like, where you headed? Do you want to do like changes in product, or you're like, okay, let's double down on what we've done and, like, maybe add upsells and a few other things? What's been up?
Yeah. So the first thing is, and it's hard for me because I want to build features, I want to add more product. That's what what I want to do. But the hard thing for me is to say no. I'm going to keep focusing on marketing because right now we're making on average, 2,000 a month or 2,500 a month. And I know if I keep growing Twitter, stay focused on that. Next year I should go from right now I'm like at about 9,000 followers. If I keep doing this next in like 12 months from now, I should be at like 40K or
Yeah.
something at this
Yeah.
rate. And I'm
Mm.
like, okay, at this rate, I know even with the same product, with all its limitation and how simple and tiny it is, we will make a living, which is
Mm.
my number one priority because we still use our saving and stuff like that. So it's
Right.
like a big exercise for me to be like, let's not build like the next Apple or whatever, just like, okay, make a living, survive. So my
Right.
focus is like, focus on marketing. And then step two is whenever I have some room, because I've done enough Twitter or like I have enough posts written ahead of time and I have like a week where I can like work on something else than Twitter or marketing, it's to move from just logo, which is,
Mm.
it's funny, like logo is going to be for someone who knows how to do design. So they just need the logo, but they can do the landing page, they can do everything. Step two is like more full brand guides with like what I said, like, fonts, colors, spacing, how to use your logo. So someone who needs a bit more guidance. So I hope to have that next year and have that running. And then big hope is to also next year have step three, which is actual assets. So like generate the social media posts ourselves, generate maybe the landing page design, generate, pitch deck templates. So like step one is just logo. We do that now. Step two is complete guide of how to use it and expand it. And step three is actual assets designed for you. And I feel like every step builds on top of the other. So right now, a
Mm.
logo, the main package is $100. We decided the price for the brand guides would be 100, so that would be 200 for the both of them. And then for like the assets, that would be maybe 200 for everything, or then maybe it can become a subscription, or I don't know. But
Right.
yeah, so that's the goal for me, is that I'm happy because I feel like even if I fail at building more features, next year we should make a living from this, just from marketing growth.
Mm.
But if we add this product, we might be able to double our revenue per customer. So I'm like, okay, now I'm not just looking at like survival, I'm like looking at survival plus some profits. That would be awesome
Right.
for us. So, it's an exciting year ahead of us, but basically focus on marketing. I'm also
Right.
starting to build something called Memelogy, which is
Mm.
uh, all my memes on the website. So people can find them and use them anytime they need. Like they need to
Right.
answer to someone with a meme. So, because I feel like it's good for basically the idea is like this website is going to be a way to get more people to Logology. There would be
Mm.
like a lot of way to go back to Logology. Uh, but yeah, that's basically focused on marketing, which is hard for me to do, but like forcing myself to focus on marketing until we
Right.
survive. Yeah.
Right. No, no, you've been very good with this so far, and wishing you all the best with this. I normally quickly have like a couple of questions at the end, which I'm going to shoot at you right away. So, number one is, where, like, what kind of people do you learn from, Dago? Is it like, do you have any people that you follow, or your friends, or, I'm sure you're going to name your wife here, pretty sure. Like, but in general, like, any people who've influenced you, whether in person or from far away?
So the funny thing is, I used to read so many books, and I didn't build anything because I was just like always thinking, oh, how should I do this? And like I spent years just reading books and being a freelancer, like, and on the side being like inspired by all these great minds, but then not doing anything because I was like overcomplicating because of that. So right now, to be honest, I don't feel like I learned from anyone. Like I just like I basically stopped myself from doing that so I can
Yeah.
just learn from experience
Right.
because I used to not have any experience. I was just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna build a startup, all these ideas about it, and now that I build it, it's completely different. So if I had to name one person, it would be Peter Thiel because I find this guy is like the most brilliant. Also, Basecamp, the guys who
Mm.
run Basecamp and who wrote the book Rework. That would be my biggest. And then a couple of friends on Twitter, like Tony Din, who's building Black Magic, the
Mm.
Twitter
Oh
tool, very
yeah.
inspired by this guy. Uh, you know, but I think I would like people to understand that stop reading books, stop being inspired. I mean, it's good at the beginning, but just stop and start building because like you're just wasting time after a while. And also, whatever somebody can tell you, whatever I can tell you, is not gonna help you. I mean, it's gonna inspire you, but when you do it, you're gonna notice your situation is completely different and it doesn't
Right.
work the same. And so, you have to figure it out on your own anyway. So try to do that fast, because I
Yeah.
wasted 10 years not doing that, being afraid of doing it. So
No, it's funny you say that, because I think, on the previous podcast recording that I was doing, is telling
yeah,
Arvind the same thing, and I'm like, listen, all these books, great, and I was on a podcast. I think I was on two podcasts recently last month, and I was like the same thing, because I used to be very similar. I used to read lots of books, lots of podcasts, and this and that,
yeah,
and I'm like, and I actually made a list of things that I was doing, on one side, and I started
yeah,
putting corresponding things to the other. So I said, okay, I'm reading book, so reading to writing, okay, listening to a podcast, going on a podcast, okay,
yeah, yeah,
reading articles. I'm like, no,
exactly, yeah.
I'm gonna write the articles, and like that's how I made the shift. And but I agree 100%. It's funny. I think I generally feel like, in general, like, starting a business or running a business actually brings you the closest to these realities of life, um,
Yeah,
which is very hard to do if you don't have that kind of independent thinking that you have to do. But when you run your own business, you have to go through that entire thing of knowing the reality of everything, because there's literally no other way. But at the same time, it's not depressing to actually go through the reality. It's actually more liberating, because now you're like, okay, I'm capable, right? I
yeah.
have all the answers that I need. If
It's
I don't have the answers,
uncomfortable, but it's not
oh yeah,
depressing.
but it's better than living in a visual state by
Yeah,
reading all these books and feeling like you're productive, but actually not. You're exactly where you were, but now you just have like five more ideas. But
yeah.
where you like, you haven't moved one bit, just by reading. So, yeah, you were saying something. Yep.
Oh no, yeah. I was gonna say like even right now, sometimes I have ideas and I'm like, okay, it's a cool idea, seems exciting, but fuck that. I need to stay focused on my own thing because I learn more by building than by starting a new idea. So Memelogy, it's the only thing I allow myself to do because tons of people have asked for it, and I can see how it can play into feeding Logology. But I had tons of crazy ideas, had completely unrelated, and I always kind of forced myself to be like, no, I'm not gonna find. I mean, if 6 months from now I stop working on Logology and do this crazy other thing, I know 6 months from now, 9 out of 10 chances I'm going to be less happy because
Mm.
logology would have, stay stuck where it is. and this new thing will probably go nowhere or realize it's always the same. Like you have this new idea, it sounds so easy, it seems like it's obvious it's going to work, and then you start working on it and it's not, because there's going to be tons of problems, tons of challenges, because when you get to reality there always is, I mean,
Mm.
99% of the time. And so you get back to the same place, and instead of having a strong product you have two weak ones, and it's way less interesting to grow, it's way harder. And so yeah, so it's like, but it's a conscious effort to stay focused.
Got it. And I'm just going to leave you with one thing that I ask everybody, which is, what's the one thing that you would say to anybody? Even though you said quite a bit, but what's the one thing that, okay, if you met a younger person, or maybe the 10 years before that you were, let's say
Yeah,
when you're just starting out or something, if you met that person, young person, or just somebody who's starting out, what is the one thing that you would tell them? Could be anything, could be two things, could be three things, but definitely just like one thing that comes to your mind that you would tell them.
yeah. I think the most important is, because I had ideas to build startup for like 10 years, but I was always scared to do it. And I wish I did. I wish I like allocated like 2 months, like 10 years ago. Okay, I'm gonna take 2 months off, like this freelancing thing, and just build the thing and try to make it successful. Like try to get one customer out of this product I create.
Mm.
Because if I had done that, I would have seen how different it is from my imagination. Like it's a completely different thing that I assumed it would be, and
Mm.
it would have made me probably like both. Oh wow, this is less comfortable than I thought, but also way more. Oh, this is more exciting than I thought. Like there's so much potential, and this would have made me want to switch to that way earlier than I did. So I would say, yeah, the advice I would give is like set aside something like 2 months and work full time, or like if you can call it like a few weeks, but like try to set aside time to build something you think you should build. Like don't try to think of like, oh, is the market big enough? Can I make a ton of money? No, no, no. Something you want to build, whatever you think it's cool, build it and try to find a customer and see how it goes. Because that's what taught me the most out of everything I did. That's what taught me the most, and it changed everything after that. So I would try to get that experience as quickly as I can, as early
Boom.
as I can in my life.
Perfect. That
Yeah,
was that's super stuff. That's so real and simple. But it's like, there's no philosophical stuff there. It's just like straight talk. So
yeah,
love
yeah.
it.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Perfect. Yeah. Thanks for coming on, Dago. Lovely, lovely, lovely chat. I wish we could go on forever on this one. Like, I think when entrepreneurs sit down these days, it's like, okay, there's so much to talk about. So, but
That was cool, man.
absolutely lovely to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, it was very enjoyable. I feel like we covered a lot like in a short time, so that was awesome. Cool.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you so much.